Hello folks, Y Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very beautiful 12-degree day. It's beautiful out here, the sun is out. But with blue skies, oftentimes when it's real cold, it gets even colder. Anyway, the name of this video is called The Y Guy Asks If Hell is Good, Acceptable, and Perfect. That's an interesting question, isn't it? And I'm going to explain that question here in a moment. I'm going to prove something. So put on your thinking cap here for a moment. You know, I used to believe in hell, and I used to promote the doctrine. So I completely understand where Christians are coming from. But, you know, it's obvious to me that hell believers refuse to reciprocate any kind of understanding, at least in this area. All right? So if I'm not talking about everything, all right? So don't pretend to understand something which you haven't sought to understand in the first place, because your mind is already made up. Let's be honest. So, is it written, don't conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your spirit? Is that what it says? No, it doesn't say that. How about the renewing of your religion? No, it doesn't. That's not written either. Does it say the renewing or the revival of your church? Again, no. It doesn't say any of what I've just mentioned here. However, in Romans 12:2, it does say, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay? So that you may, why? So that you may prove what the will of God is. That which is good, acceptable, and perfect. Okay, here's a fact. According to this verse anyway, you cannot prove what the will of God is without your mind being renewed. Hey, your argument's here with Romans 12:2. Yet Christians claim that they know what the will of God is. All right? Now, here's some questions I want to ask to prove that your mind's already made up and it still needs to be renewed. Would God create something that wasn't His will? That's kind of an odd way to ask that, but would He? That's kind of a no-duh question, right? The next question is hell the will of God? If so, is hell good? How about acceptable? You know, how perfect is hell? If it's all His will, it's got to be those three things, according to Romans 12:2, right? Is this starting to sink in a little bit, what I'm trying to get at here with this video? If you believe in hell and you think it's remotely in God's plan, as in His will for any portion of mankind, then prove it. Simple as that. Prove it. What this verse just said. Prove what the will of God is. That which is good and acceptable and perfect. Prove it. I challenge anyone to prove what the will of God is, again, by proving how good and acceptable and perfect hell is. You know, those in Christendom refuse to have their mind renewed. They really do. Why? Why is that? Because their mind is already made up, thinking their minds have already been renewed. I thought that way. For over 30 years I thought that way. I've got it all, man. I've got it all. I understand. Jesus came to save us from hell. My mind was made up. All right? However, if you believe in hell like I once did, you need your mind renewed. Unless you can prove that hell is good, acceptable, and perfect. Hey. You know, in closing here, Christians have substituted a renewed mind, what Scripture calls the mind of Christ. And they have conformed to the world around them, like I once did. You know, they've conformed to their church, you know, their pastors and priests, the deception that's been going on for generations. They have conformed to a Bible that was initially conformed to an ancient Latin church. Don't get me wrong, there's wonderful inspired words from God in the Bible. Don't get me wrong there. But, in other words, the church did not come from the Bible, but the Bible came out of and from a corrupted church system. It came out of that. That's why we're instructed in the Bible to rightly divide the word of truth from the words that are not true. Okay? So here's my plea, Christian. Don't be afraid to have your mind renewed so that you may prove what the will of God is. Whatever is not good and acceptable and perfect is simply not the will of God. So I challenge anyone to prove that hell is any of those, any of the above. You know, if you disagree with this video, like I always say, give me a thumbs down. Be polite with any comments or I'll delete your comments. And give me a thumbs up if you happen to agree with this video. Consider subscribing. Look me up on Facebook under a group called the Why Guy Group. I ask 3 questions. 3 simple, non-evasive questions for you to join. Please answer those. And I have that's a private timeline. I have a public timeline of under the name of John Anthony Jones. Also, I will leave a link to Amazon link to my book. I can't even see the screen, so I'm not even sure if this is even showing up on the video here. I wrote a book here, 400 plus page book called In Defense of God's Love. Consider looking into that. It's on Kindle as well, if you don't want to have this heavy thing. I'm still kind of arguing with myself about doing a audio book or not. A lot of people have asked me to, but gosh, that's about as much time consuming as it would be this. Anyway, I do thank you for viewing and for considering what I've shared. Judge what I've shared. Okay? Judge it. Does it bring out the fruit of the Spirit in you? Does everything I've shared, does it complement God's character, which is love? Okay? That's important to judge things like that. Thank you for viewing.